75 grand right out of high school and no college debt. And you're thinking, what's the job? Athlete? Social influencer? Nope. Try welder. That's the salary commanded by an 18-year-old who will soon graduate from Philadelphia's Catholic Father Judge High School. And he's not alone. All 24 graduating seniors in the school's welding program have job offers of $50,000 and above. Aiden Holland is the student with the $75,000 commitment from a defense contractor in New Jersey. They want him to be a nuclear submarine welder. And these stories are not one-offs. They're part of a reevaluation that Randy Weingarten, the head of the American Federation of Teachers, calls shedding the misperception some may still have of technical education as a dumping ground for students headed for low-skill, low-paying jobs. This is the new thinking. The world of education is in a state of flux. The 3 R's now stand for rework, revamp, and review. And this thinking applies to both high school and college. And I don't mean the College of Cardinals. It's been long overdue and now accelerated by the role of artificial intelligence. A poll of 1,000 college students showed that almost 90% of them used the chatbot to help with homework. And that was taken right after the launch of ChatGPT. More recent research shows widespread use of AI in both high schools and colleges. The question today is not are students getting help from AI, but are they doing any of the work themselves? Thus, we get the story of Chungin Roy Lee. As told by New York Magazine, a computer science major at Columbia, he was quite open about how he exploited OpenAI. He used it on almost all assignments. He said 80% of his essays were AI generated. Quote, I'd put on the finishing touches, I'd just insert 20% of my humanity. The essays might have been 20% Lee's, but he got 100% of the grade, and that was okay with him. As he explained, most assignments in college are not relevant. But he adds they're hackable by AI. In fact, Lee launched an AI tool that helps students cheat their way through a job interview. Columbia put him on disciplinary probation. Lee notes that Columbia has partnered with OpenAI, which created ChatGPT, so why punish him? He predicts that it won't be long before using AI for homework won't be considered cheating. And if AI can do all the work, then why even go to class? A recent Harvard Crimson article by Sandhya Kumar, class of 2026, looks at the issue of students playing hooky, noting that Harvard has recognized there's a problem and now requires a certain level of attendance. Wrong answer, says Kumar. She says she pulls out her iPad or laptop to work on other assignments when the lecturer can't hold her attention. She recognizes missing class comes with a cost, but her analysis suggests it might be worth it. Check this out. Harvard's tuition, $56,550 a year. Quote, every class I miss costs around $117.81 plus the non-monetary cost of potential implications on my course grade. Who wants to waste $117 and forego a coveted A? The true cost of attending class isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in time, energy, and opportunity. Every once in a while, that $117.81 feels like a worthwhile trade-off for an extra hour to finish an assignment, prepare for an exam, or recover from an all-nighter. And so I skip class. Kumar adds that students skip out because they don't feel they're learning anything new. They can get what they need based on their own with class materials. So if AI can do all the work and class attendance is unnecessary, then why even invest the 4 years to get a degree? The White House seems to support this position in its own way. President Trump recently signed an executive order that states the government is no longer behind the one-size-fits-all approach to education, which previous administrations promoted as college for all. This new order is designed to modernize American workforce programs to prepare citizens for the high-paying skilled trade jobs of the future. And so we've come full circle now with the Republican Trump White House sounding very much like the teachers' union leader, Randy Weingarten, education making for strange bedfellows. And then again, the president may have his own reasons for supporting this reform because in recent election cycles, education has become the single best predictor of political leanings. Consider that in the 2024 election, Republicans won 14 of the 15 least educated states. Democrats won 14 of the 15 most educated states. Of course, it wasn't that long ago when being a college graduate meant that everybody thought you had the world by the tail and they had advice for you.
I just want to say one word to you. Just one word.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, I am.
plastics.
Exactly how do you mean?
There's a great future in plastics. Think about it.
But as we've seen with the rethinking of the place of education and fresh out of high school welding jobs, the emphasis on college for earnings is changing. Mind you, the data still shows that college is the best bet in the long run. According to a recent study with Georgetown University, somebody with a bachelor's degree earns $2.8 million on average over their lifetime. A high school diploma will earn you $1.6 million. Of course, that's just the beginning of the calculus. For instance, engineering and business majors, they earn significantly more than those who get degrees in education or the arts. At the same time, learning a skilled trade offers job security that you can't always find elsewhere. I remember a great bestseller years ago by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. It was called The Millionaire Next Door. The surprising thesis, backed by a ton of research, was that if you want to find someone who's worth $1 million, there's no need to go to Beverly Hills or Park Avenue. You can just look around your own neighborhood. If a person has a steady job, is able to build up a business or a reliable service, and doesn't live a showy, flashy lifestyle, they'll be able to accumulate a surprising amount over the years. A compelling takeaway from The Millionaire Next Door is that many of the millionaires profiled, they weren't doctors, they weren't lawyers, they weren't executives. They were skilled tradespeople. They were small business owners. And the authors found that a significant proportion of millionaires were self-employed in what might be considered blue-collar or middle-market industries. Think plumbers, think welders, electricians, contractors, pest control operators. These individuals often built modest businesses over time. They exercised strict financial discipline. They reinvested profits rather than indulging in lifestyle inflation. Unlike some high-income professionals who often live paycheck to paycheck in high-status neighborhoods, these tradespeople, they lived well below their means. They avoided debt. They focused on wealth accumulation rather than status signaling. So with all the discussion of education reform, one fact emerges. No matter your path, it's not just the learning you get, but what you do with it. Joining me now, someone who knows a great deal about it, Angie Simon, who in 2021 started the Heavy Metal Summer Experience, a nonprofit program that exposes high school students to careers in trades such as welding, plumbing, piping. It's a free program with over 50 locations across the United States and Canada. Angie, what happened to wood shop? What happened to metal shop? Tomorrow is Mother's Day. I think my mother still has the ladle that I made for her in metal shop, and somewhere I've got one of the business cards that I block style put together in wood shop.
You know, Michael, that's the problem. That's where the issue is. Somebody asked me, how long do I want to run Heavy Metal Summer Experience? And I said, only until we can get wood shops and metal shops back in high schools. Right now, high schoolers don't know about the trades, and that's the problem. They don't have a chance to experience what it does working with your hands. And I think we need to get that back into our high schools, and our high schools need to respect the fact that there's a lot of other good paths to a career besides college.
Will you speak to the demand? Because I know you've got the data and you know what the situation is across the country, right? It's not just that we want to put these people through your program. There are jobs waiting for them.
Oh, yes, absolutely. There are so many jobs waiting for them. I mean, right now in construction, we are short about 400,000 jobs. And we have about 40% of our industry retiring in the next 5 to 7 years. So being short already, and then they're going to retire in our industry, there is so much opportunity for anybody that would like to be in the trades. And as you had said earlier, many of the tradespeople come through the trades and they start their own businesses as well. Probably about 65% of our contractors within SMACTA, the Sheet Metal Contractors Association, are own businesses by people that came through the trades. So it's such a great opportunity for the students to come through the trades.
We're showing some video of your heavy metal workshop. One of your students said something that caught my ear and my eye. Can we run that tape and I'll ask Angie a question?
There's too many people who don't know about the trades, and I'm glad that they're able to change that with this program.
Alejandro says there are too many who don't know about the trades, and as I watched the video and learned more about this effort, I thought to myself, who do we need to reach? Do we need to reach these students? That would seem obvious. Or really, is the issue their parents?
Yeah, it's a little of both, and counselors to a certain degree, and school districts. But I am surprised when the parents are so surprised when they come to graduation from our camps to find out how much money a student can make. And the fact that they can be, if you join the union, you are getting trained with no cost to you and you're making money while you're doing it. And they find out that they get pensions, they get benefits and everything else. They find out that they can make six figures. So it's amazing how quickly the parents will change their tune and say, okay, maybe we don't need to go to college. But we are also focusing on the at-risk and underserved areas. And these are parents that really weren't sure what their kids were going to do, period. And they look so relieved to see that their kids are enjoying this, working with their hands, and actually making projects. So I know that we hit a little bit of a button here because all of a sudden we grew so fast. I mean, to go from 28 kids in 2 camps in 21 to this summer going to have almost 900 students across the United States and Canada. Obviously, it's really needed. And sadly, we're turning down kids from our applications. We have so many applicants for all of our camps. And go ahead.
I know that a lot of parents, hope that their son, their daughter will rise up and work with their hands as an orthopedist or a dentist. But the takeaway here is you can get that same level of satisfaction and earn a good living through the skilled trades. Final thought is yours for 20 seconds.
Well, we were talking about when tradespeople, when I started college, got out of college, so 45 years of college, and started work at Western Alley where I began, mechanical contractor. The pipe fitters who were the same age as I was had already bought homes in the Bay Area. And I had just gotten out of school and I was just starting working. And that's the part that is interesting. You start 18 years old in the trades and by the time you're 25 years old, you have probably bought a house and even in the Bay Area. So that's the final thought. I mean, look at that opportunity and actually with technology today, construction is not the same construction that people think about. A lot of technology. So.
Angie, it's a great point. In the Wall Street Journal story that I was quoting from, there was a contractor who does recruiting, goes into high schools, and he says, I'm not looking for the same person I was looking for 20 years ago. There's a technical proficiency, an understanding of computers that is now essential to these jobs because they've gone high tech. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate it.
Social media reaction from the world of X. What do we have? College has become a 4-year party that you happen to be able to get a look.
So I'm going to jump probably to another video, guys. I just want to say what's up. It's your boy, Talk Williams, host and creator, Hip Hop 50th. And yeah, I actually played clips from this in another video that I did on a live a few nights ago. But my question is, or my thought I wanted to share out there with you guys was the state of schooling or education or the traditional way as we know it. I think it needs to be revisited. I think now it is being revisited. We have classrooms in different parts of the United States. They have pilot programs going on where they've either absolutely removed the teacher altogether and it's kind of like automated AI, or they've changed the paradigm or the program, the model tremendously. And instead of having the traditional teachers, they have something called learning aids or learning technicians or something like that, where their focus is how to be an assistant to the students, not necessarily in teaching them, but I guess in a way in teaching them, but the focus is showing them how to be resourceful and troubleshooting areas that would be challenging to the students when they're using the AI tools and the different resources and other things that are made available to them. Now, I'm an old guy, I'm an OG, right? Back in the day, I know everybody, they hate to hear that back in the day, but back in the day when I went to school, it didn't really work for me. That traditional setting of school, it did not work for me. I look at the stuff that's available now, it just wasn't available then, and I get it. But that whole one umbrella, that little standard of this is how we're teaching and this is how, everybody has to accept it, especially if your parents can't pay for you to get private schooling or maybe go to a chartered school or home school or whatever. You're just here and this is what you're dealing with. It was just unfortunate for so many, including myself, because what was perceived as us not having learning issues, it really wasn't that. It was just that model of learning, teaching, not learning, but the teaching didn't work for the way that I learned. But that was the most popular one. And when they set the system up, it's not to really catch everybody. It's to catch the majority of the people. And I understand that, the majority of the students. And I understand that. But I want to play this little clip here where they're actually using Google XR glasses. You know, not like the glasses I got on so I could see, but these virtual room or whatever glasses inside. Well, let's just take a look.
Google's Android XR. What is it?
Oh no, that's Google's Android XR. That's not really what I was talking about. I was really talking about the AI market when it comes to school systems. But some teachers, some people think that it shouldn't be that way. But let's check out let's check out some feedback from a number of college students that openly admit that they use OpenAI to get that first draft, to get them going, to get that jump start to the formatting and different things like that. And then they just tweak it out for themselves and try to make it as original as possible. Now, me personally, I'm not clear on where plagiarism begins and where copy and paste ends or any of that stuff. I thought it wasn't plagiarism as long as you quoted or cited the resources or different things like that. But let's just take a listen.
A growing number of college students are reportedly turning to artificial intelligence for help with their coursework. And now researchers are warning about the potential negative effects of relying on the technology. A study from Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon published in February found, quote, higher confidence in generative AI is associated with less critical thinking, while higher self-confidence is associated with more critical thinking. The study is one of many that New York Magazine's Intelligencer features writer James Walsh references in his recent reporting with the headline, "Everyone is cheating their way through college." James joins us now. Thank you for being here. Your article is enlightening, frightening, all of the above. I'm going to give some examples of what students told you how they use it. Taking notes during class, devising study guides, practicing tests, summarizing novels and textbooks, so who needs Spark Notes anymore, drafting their essays, STEM students using it to sail through dense coding. Where do the students you spoke with draw the line when it comes to getting some harmless help versus plagiarism and cheating?
Right. I guess the biggest problem they have sometimes is understanding where their work begins and ends and where AI's work begins and ends. You know, schools have sort of left it up to teachers to decide what's okay to use AI, when it's not okay to use AI, and how to use AI. And unfortunately, a lot of students sort of see those as guidelines, not really hard rules in terms of the honor code. So it's very easy for students to see all of their classmates using AI and think this is okay. This is a tool that I'm going to have access to the rest of my life. I might as well take advantage of it now. And you know, there's really no kind of short-term consequences. But of course, over time, the long-term consequences are you're not necessarily learning or engaging with the material. You know, you're not reading the texts.
I want to circle back to that in a second. I mean, it sort of is like the adage, if you can't beat them, join them. I mean, you're going to be left behind if everybody else is using AI and you're not. But what are teachers doing? I mean, how are they able to detect? Are they able to detect?
Teachers I spoke to sort of felt underwater. There are some methods to detect AI. There are some AI platforms out there that can detect with varying degrees of reliability whether or not a block of text has been produced or how much of it has been produced using AI. But essentially, you know, those tools are not perfect. They're far from perfect. And what this does is kind of creates a situation where you have professors who, you know, in addition to teaching the material, need to become Perry Mason because they have to, you know, build these cases against students, and it's very difficult. You know, the teachers don't necessarily have a lot of faith in this detection software, and students know that as well. So, say a professor sits a student down and says, you know, this says is 80% detected AI. You know, we know you used AI. A student can just deny because there's no really good way to prove it.
Teachers already have so much to deal with. What are the larger impacts on society, on our young minds?
Sure. Well, there's the study. We don't know. It's early yet. ChatGPT went live in November 2022, so it's about 2 years, a little over 2 years. The study you just cited, the detriment it could have overall on critical thinking. It's natural, right? If we offload all of this thinking and all of this work onto robots, does it look like WALL-E? I certainly hope not. But I think our dependence on AI has deep implications that we really need to think out, and we should be doing that on college campuses where we're shaping these minds.
Absolutely. James Walsh, thank you so much for your reporting and for coming on.
Of course.
So I do have the question here. Let me make sure my sound is back up. Yeah, I'm up. I do have the question here for you guys. What is the issue? What would you say? Here's the reality as I see it, and this is just anecdotal, subjective, visceral, whatever you want to call it. The way I see it is we're all currently, if not, are going to be getting the AI. The AI is either going to come on the front end, it's going to come in the middle, or it's going to come in the back end. So with schools, for example, if they say students cannot use any AI tools at all whatsoever, there's some line there, there's some understanding there, because what do you think that the school systems are going to do? What do you think that they're going to be using to choose learning material? What do you think those school districts and teachers and professors and whatever that is that they do in the back, they're going to be adopting AI systems. They're going to be selecting AI systems, whether it's in the agentic space for support or whatever like that, whether it's to make sure that there's some parity amongst instructors or a common line of in terms of curriculum and why this teacher might have chose this book and this other one decided to get this one and all of that. So AI is going to be served up to us regardless of whether we're the student, we're the teacher, we're the administrator. I get that. In other words, that's what I think. But, and I'm interrupted by a very popular comment that Billy Free just made that I have to agree with 1,000%. And my Pink Floyd off the wall is just, yeah. All we are is just another brick in the wall. Absolutely. But for students, right? Now, I would say that at some point, it'll settle down. At some point, I think it's a great thing that AI is coming into the classrooms. Why? Because these teachers, unfortunately, they aren't the teachers that they're supposed to be. They're not even the hire that the school system says they are. They're not even producing the students that supposed to be produced. They're not, it's just not that way. And so what happens? We get into a situation where we have to defend the model because of the human beings, because of the selection, because of the accountability. Now, if you remove all of that and you see something that is not working, then that means that the curriculum, the lesson plan for the season, for the semesters, for the kids that year, it can be fluid. You're not stuck, one, with making them eat what you decided and signed off on in the beginning of the year or in the off month to prepare for it. And you can make the adjustment as you go based on the student, based on what's going on, based on what's out there. And then the school administrators are not stuck trying to defend a teacher when they know that what they're teaching or their method is mediocre at best, no matter what their certification is because they hired them or whatever. So there's some to and fro, there's some pros and cons to that. But without a doubt, make no mistake about it, to me, not only should the students have access to selected AI tools and resources, and so should the teacher. So should the teacher. When they're getting them grades or when they're saying, okay, you can use AI, They need to figure out a way where they say, all right, you know, it seems like you used AI, or make it transparent. Make the students feel like they can be transparent about what AI tools that they use. An example would be if I was to do a paper and I turn it into the teacher, and the teacher was to put, or they was to ask, hey, what AI tools did you use to complete this paper? And, you know, present it in a way where I'm going to put it down there. I used ChatGPT, and then I did some research myself. I talked to my father because he was born when he was here when Abraham Lincoln was here. I checked with my great-granddad, who was here when Harriet Tubman was running up and down the Underground Railroad. And I watched some YouTube videos and listened to the drunk down at the corner store while I was down there buying some weed. See, now you got all of that, right? And now you get this level of transparency and be able to embrace it. And then you're able to say, okay, but some of the key things we want to kind of get to is, what is it that you understand? What is your takeaway? What were you able to do? What are you able to gather out of that? So that's why, like for me, I wouldn't use the approach, and I know the school systems, they're using this approach, pushback, using Grammarly and all of these other tools to detect that you use some type of chat GPT, or it's plagiarism, or 80% of it is this and 90% is copy and paste. And we found that I get all of that. They need to find a way to embrace these methods and embrace the use of AI tools and resources by the students. And then they also need to find a way to give each teacher a support system by way of like a Copilot, if you think about Microsoft, Einstein, if you think about Salesforce, a Firefly, if you think about Adobe, and so forth and so forth and so forth, where now teachers have a support system in terms of AI, in terms of some other tools and resources that they can use with their learning, their degrees, their certificate, or whatever like that. It can work both ways because it's going to work both ways. This idea that I need you to manually write out 2 + 3 = 4, and I need you to do it with a lead number 2 pencil, and I need you to do it where I can see you do the work. There's too many other ways to show that work and gain more from it than me sitting there with the pencil going 2x, 3, whatever the case is. That's kind of where I'm at. Now, there's this teacher. I don't know if it's in Texas, Florida, Maryland, Chicago, whatever state is in. She actually quit because she felt like the students cannot read. They're using ChatGPT, and I'm done. And she's pretty young, but check out what she went through. Check out what she decided to do.
A former English teacher going viral after posting a raw and unfiltered farewell video as she leaves the classroom behind after just 3 years. Listen.
A lot of these kids don't know how to read because they have had things read to them, or they can click a button and have something read out loud to them. I just don't think these kids even care. They don't care about making a difference in the world. They don't care about how to have a resume. They don't care how to write a resume. They don't care how to write a cover letter because ChatGPT will just do it for them. And I think that we need to cut off technology from these kids, probably until they go to college.
Hannah is a former teacher, and she joins us now. She posted that video. More than 1 million people have seen it, Hannah, probably more by the time we're on this morning. Why did you post that video?
So I taught for 3 years, as I said in my video. I wasn't always a teacher. I actually started my career in digital marketing. So I've been in the digital world for about 5 years now, or since I've graduated. And throughout the 3 years, I've taught digital arts classes, and I've taught an English class. And I would say that in all of my teaching experience, technology has posed quite a challenge. And with AI becoming so accessible to children nowadays, especially teaching in an English or Core 4 classroom, it's been especially challenging kind of to have the kids comprehend and critical think and think for themselves on certain things.
Yeah.
So on my way out, I wanted to kind of raise awareness and just let people know how AI and technology is affecting their children these days.
Right. I know, coming from a mother who taught for 33 years, my sister's a teacher in South Carolina, the challenges that y'all deal with, this is even before AI was a thing. I'm sure it's even more challenging now. And clearly, your opinion is, yes, it is. You're a high school teacher. I'm sure your students loved you. We hate to see someone leave education because of problems within the classroom. Give me some examples of what the students are saying to you.
Well, a lot of students, and I do want to be clear, I taught a lot of very motivated and bright children. And so I don't want this to come off as if this is all the kids' fault. But I do know that a lot of times in my English classroom, I would ask them to write down a short response or just 5 sentences to answer a question. And a lot of times it would be about 2.5 sentences. And they would say, well, I can't think of anything else to say. Or, well, why do I have to answer in complete sentences? Like, you get the point from what I'm saying in just this little sentence. And then a lot of times I would assign essays, long form essays. And I know how children write, especially when they handwrite me things in the beginning of the school year. And so when a student, how I know how they write, typically would give me a very eloquently and thorough essay on a topic that I know that normally wouldn't come from them, I would ask them, was this really you? And I'd run it through an AI generator. And of course, it would say 100% ChatGPT or AI. And I would speak to the student and they would more so question of, well, if I have to redo this, how much is it really going to affect my grade? Can I just take the 0?
Oh my gosh, trying to take the easy way out. Yeah.
Right.
Is it promoting just a laziness among our children?
I suppose. And a lot of them are just feeling as though they don't really need to do the work anymore because AI will just do it for them.
Right.
And I think that AI can be in a classroom in a very effective way if we teach children in the older grades how to use it properly. But if we're allowing them this unlimited access in the classroom to use AI, they're not going to do the work themselves.
Yeah, I know you're a proponent of getting technology out of our classrooms, getting the phones out of our classrooms. I still can't believe some schools are allowing that. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry you had to leave the classroom. What are you going to do next?
Yes, well, I actually am working in a nonprofit now. I run donor relations, development, and digital marketing for them. So I'm back in what I was doing before teaching, and I'm loving it so far.
All right. Well, Hannah, thank you for giving up those 3 years. Appreciate it. We love our teachers.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunate for her, and it's even more unfortunate for the kids because it seems like she really wanted to dive in with the kids and give them the best of herself in terms of the learning and teaching. Now, Alpha made a comment, and let me read it again. It's oh, there it is right there. Okay. AI is often wrong in ways a knowledgeable person or even expert is needed to explain. Absolutely. Here's the thing about AI, though. Here's what I say to people. Not that I'm an expert in anything. It's just my opinion. Here's what I say to people. The mistakes that people typically have been finding in AI, let's say over the last 2 years, let's say if you go back 2 years ago, November 2023, however it goes, right? What you'll find now, it's hard to find those same exact mistakes or errors at the same level or depth those errors presented themselves. So I'll give you an example, right? Like when I was using ChatGPT back in 2023, like September, October, November, something like that, right? Playing with it. The example would be if you did a search for how many moons the planet Saturn had, or Jupiter, you know, these planets with the most moons, it would give you a number, right? And you know, if you haven't been in school in a while, you'll be like, oh, it's 76 moons, it's 77 moons. Well, that number was incorrect during that time. Why? Because the large language model that ChatGPT, and I'm talking, when I say ChatGPT, I know in general now when people say ChatGPT, they're not necessarily talking about OpenAI's version of ChatGPT anymore, because several companies and organizations, they have some form of a ChatGPT. So now it's more of a general term when people say ChatGPT. But when I'm saying it, I'm talking specifically about OpenAI's ChatGPT. It gave me the wrong information. Why? Because at the time, if you was playing with it back then, it had a limitation of how far it could go back, how forward it could go, excuse me, because of the LLM, the large language model it was trained on was basically in a black box. It was in a black box. So they fed it and they dumped it, and all of the algorithms, the neural networks and the machine learning and the deep learning that it did in isolation. It did in a vacuum. So that means when they fed it, if that was the information, that was the information. If shortly after that, scientists discovered 60 more moons, 15 more moons around Saturn, 20 more moons around Jupiter, which is absolutely true for one of them, it couldn't give you that number, because at that time, it couldn't do what some refer to scraping the internet. It couldn't even tell you what time it was. But here's what happens. And that's why I say when people say, oh man, it makes so many mistakes. Yeah, it makes a lot of mistakes, but over a short period of time, not a long period of time. What you will find about these ChatGPTs is the mistakes will lessen. They won't go away, but that same obvious mistake to that same question or prompt, all of a sudden, they're not as mistaken as they were before. And as we move forward, those are mistakes. Though a lot of those mistakes are going to go away. New mistakes will come, but a lot of those, what it couldn't tell you last week and what it couldn't tell you last month, is going to give you that. Because if you look at different things that they're adding and they building out, different modules and different parts of the AI monster in and of itself, when I was searching for the moon or somebody was trying to find out what time it was, ChatGPT couldn't scrape the internet. Not only that, they didn't have RAG or CAG or something like that. So if you think about ChatGPT, the LMM, the large language model being in the black box, and it was trained in there, that's where its school is, machine learning, deep learning, whatever, it's pulling from there. But then when they came out with the RAG, now we have retrieval augmented generation. And what retrieval augmented generation started doing was when you prompt ChatGPT for that same question, the example being how many moons are around Saturn or Jupiter, and it just gave you what that LLM model was trained on inside that black box. With RAG, it goes out to a content store. It goes out to a different set of databases made available to it, whether it be online, whether some resources here or some type of way, and it adds another level of context, taking that information with the prompt of me asking how many moons they are, and then weighing in and indexing what the LLM that was trained in the black box in combination says. So now when it came back, it doesn't say Saturn has 76 moons. It'll say up until 19 so-and-so or whatever year, Saturn has 76 moons. But because it used the RAG or the CAG being the cache augmented generation, and RAG being the retrieve augmented generation, it hits the content store. It adds another context. It indexes it in. Whereas though with the cache, the CAG, the cache keeps it fresh. It preloads all of the stuff that's outside of what the LLM has been trained on. And it grabs that in combination with my prompt. Then it pulls from the LLM and it serves all of that up as a response. And that would be a small example of what I mean when people say, oh, it's so many mistakes, it's so many mistakes. Sure it is. But I'm just saying, what I've experienced and what is becoming more obvious is that these mistakes that it's been making, that we've been experiencing, those mistakes, they're going to start evaporating, or they're going to become lessened in how much of a mistake it was when we first experienced it. And that's what one of the advantages of this whole AI thing, this whole augmented generative thing, this whole predictive, reflexive, whatever model of AI intelligence we're talking about, because it can do the deep learning. It can actually take advantage of that infrastructure, that topology, if you want to say, that design of that model, where it's using the latest. How do I say it? A lattice? What is it? What is it? LATTICE. So you have a lattice, you have a matrix, and you have arrays. In other words, it's mimicking the human mind. The neural network is mimicking the human mind, and it doesn't need to go to sleep. That's the compute power. It just does it. So I'm not trying to sell it, because it don't need no selling. I'm just saying, in terms of knowledge, I think that the school systems need to revisit what it is that we need to know and why, versus what it is that we can just look up and verify and keep it moving based on, what's best for humanity or the students or a job or whatever like that. That's what it is. Think about like this. If you've done any programming, if you've done any coding, anything like that, when guys now, they go and they get the libraries. They don't code all of that stuff up anymore. But I give them this. Their knowledge base is they know how to code. So they have the knowledge that they know how to code, and that's cool. But they're not coding all of this stuff. They're going to get libraries. They're going to GitHub. They're going to places where people already did the work, and they pulling it in, and they making use of that. That's just what it is. So all I'm saying is, judging it now is like judging a kid. You want to look at the next 3 to 5 years, the next 3 years. You want to look at how that is. Now, to the defense of the students, why is it important that a student remembers what order the planets are in? Why would that be important? I'm just really asking that. Why is it important that a student to understand that the planets are in a certain order is one thing. To understand the significant positioning of the planet Earth is another thing. But why is it important that a student should just beat in their head that they know the orders of the planets coming from, just talking about our solar system, closest or furthest away in that order? How many moons they are? How the moons behave? See, to me, that's not important. That's not the essence of the knowledge. The essence of the knowledge would be, do you understand what a moon is? Do you understand how in science, for at least now until they change the definition, how we identify a moon versus an asteroid? Do you understand that when Pluto, which used to be the 9th planet, got degraded to a special type of asteroid, why that was done? To me, that would be important. Not, oh, you got that wrong. That's not the order. No. To me, it's important to understand if there's a sun, you do know the planets closer to the sun, they're going to get the most heat from the sun. And depending on how they rotate on their axis is how they're going to get the sunlight from the sun. Okay? Because you can get the heat without getting the most sunlight. We know that. Those things are the essence of the knowledge to me. I'm not a teacher. I'm just saying to me. Why? Because it's the principles and concepts and foundational stuff. The rest of that stuff you'll get. You know, your inference and logical deduction and all of that stuff. I don't need to know which president was the order of presidents. Don't test me on, can you name each capital to a state? It's more important to me to know why a capital exists to each state. It's more important for me to understand the structure of politics. Why there's 2 senators in each state, why Washington, D.C. has a shadow senator. That's more important to me than knowing the name of the senator itself that's there tomorrow. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying teachers aren't needed. Teachers will always be needed in the household, at the church, on the corner, with the crackhead, the alcoholic, the millionaire, the billionaire, the dancer, the bricklayer, the student, it doesn't matter. Teacher, certified or not, we always need to be teaching because we always have students. But now that we got AI, we need to separate the fluff. Because some of these teachers, they ain't the best thing for the kids, even though they certified. Because that model of certifying a teacher now, that might need to change. That might need an update. And when they pick that book for that curriculum and they're going to make me read it and go through all, that might not be the best way to do it no more. Listen. I go to McDonald's, right? I order something. It's $4.07. I give the girl a $5 bill, a nickel, and 2 pennies. So I give her $5.07, even though it came up to $4.07. Why am I doing that? Because I don't want 93 cents in change because they give you anything. Just give me a whole dollar back so I can stick in my pocket. I'm giving you $5.07. Why when I do that, it's a huddle at the cash register. 3 or 4 people got to gather around sometimes, hold a conversation, and then they disperse like an alarm went off when they make a decision, and then she go in there and give me the dollar. Because you don't have to count to work at McDonald's. You just can't be colorblind. So you can choose the right color of the buttons. You probably just got to be able to read, something like that. So all I'm saying is, with the advent of AI, you're going to experience it on the front end, the back end, in the middle. We already doing it. It's just that we love it when it's working for us. And then we say, well, they shouldn't be using AI. They should know what it is. I think both can exist. I think that schools can teach, focus on the knowledge, like what is it that we need to teach? What is it that these kids need to know versus they should be able to read a whole book? I don't know. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just throwing that out there. Let me play this other clip. But Teresa Kersey, Teresa Kersey. Teresa Kersey. She put her name is in all caps. So I'm gonna pen this so I can read it. But let me read it. Teresa Kersey says, I believe it's called education. And it's important for people to be educated. Imagine if people didn't know about slavery because it wasn't important to them to educate and evolve. So Teresa Kersey, I don't know if you're there, gone, but I'm gonna respond by saying this. I'm not talking about education. I'm 1,500 million% on education. I'm talking about schooling. Schooling, to me, is not education. Schooling is the vehicle, is the place people go to get an education. I'm talking about they need to look at and redo or revisit. That's all I'm saying. Revisit your models, your ways, how you applied, how practical it is now. revamp in some cases the school system. So maybe they can choose a different way of delivering the education. That's all I'm talking about. That's all I mean. Because I'm clear that you don't need a whole gang of school to get educated. In fact, education is not even restricted to school. But since school is where people go, and school is where most graduate and they go through junior, preschool, whatever, and eventually college or whatever like that, fine. I think it's wonderful. But they need to revisit that. That's all I'm saying. Things ain't, it's this story I've told people, my friends, and they say, yeah, man. And I said, yeah, I remember my father was telling me I was late getting to school or something. And he was telling me, look, when we was kids, me and your uncle, we had to get up and walk 1.5 miles to get to school. You know them stories, right? And I said, Daddy, it wasn't a SUV in the car sitting outside in the driveway when y'all was doing that, though. See, in other words, if you and my uncle got up in the morning and y'all walked 1.5 miles to get to school every day and 1.5 miles to get back from school every day, and you telling me when you left out the front door in our driveway, there was an SUV, a truck, and a car, and y'all just walked past that every morning. There was nothing available to drop you off. To me, that's amazing. It's not amazing if it's nothing out there, though. That's the difference now. We're somewhere else with gaining access. We're somewhere else with getting resources. We're somewhere else with the tools that are made available to people with money and without money, with poverty, without poverty. That's all I'm saying. So school systems, I'm just saying they need to revisit that structure instead of defending the status quo. Refresh your database. Put a new fresh set of eyes on where things are and where they're going. That's all I'm getting at on that. But anyway, let me play this other little piece here. Here we go. Oops.
The bus.
Okay.
I've always been jealous of Winston Churchill. There's a quote, by the way, the history of innovation is the bed, the bus, and the bathtub. It's always these moments when we're not really thinking.
This is it right here.
Technology is not only changing what our kids learn, it's changing how they learn. By some estimates, more than 1 million students from kindergarten through 12th grade are taking online classes in this country. Some say the upside is that your kids are given more subjects to choose from, but are they missing out on not having the face-to-face interaction? Here to talk about it, our education contributor, Steve Perry. We know that technology in the classroom can really make things better and more dynamic, but online classes, taking a kid who failed math in the 3rd grade and putting them in front of a computer to try to learn math, there might be some concerns about this, Steve.
One of the concerns is that there are people who believe that this is taking jobs away from adults. My interest is in what children need. So what we need to consider is that it's not just a child sitting in front of a blank screen. In many cases, they're actually interacting with a person. The person's on the other side, much in the same way that I'm interacting with you through a computer. In addition to that, it provides children with access to a one-to-one teacher-to-student ratio, which so many people say that they want. And what we know for sure is that millions, and I do mean millions of children every single month are on sites like Khan Academy, where they haven't gotten what they wanted to get from their traditional school. So for some reason or another, they're now on Khan. Most of us, when we want to learn how to do something, what do? Look it up online. This is not just the wave of the future, it's the way in which we as people learn today.
But as a parent, you have to be so careful about this, because if your kid is not grasping the math in front of you, is it a sign maybe that they're not getting something in the classroom and they've just been shuttled off to the online class? I mean, how do you make sure that you're getting the most out of this as a parent?
Well, the way that this is what's great for.
Oh, I apologize, but let me jump in and say this because he made a good point. And he says that a lot of students, what they're doing is when they're having issues or when they want to research something or get a better idea, they go on Khan Academy or Udemy, or they go online and look it up YouTube or some other source. And they have to. You know why? It's the kid that's been sold that you do what the teacher says. And this is your book. And these are the lessons. And this is the way. You do a disservice to that child. That's what you do. Because now you have this protocol set up for them to get assistance. You have this system set up for them to get direct help from the teacher or whatever. And then that's going to take days or a few more hours, and the lesson is done or needs to be handed in. See, this is what kids are dealing with. This is what students are dealing with. What the school system is concerned about is, oh, if they need help, all they got to do is submit this, and it's up on the whiteboard, or they could do this. No, that's why I limit that. You already confusing me. I already don't understand you, teacher. It's already other people in the class that don't understand you, teacher. We're uniquely the same. I'm not slow where I'm the only one that's not getting your message, or I'm the only one that's getting stuck on a certain part. So why it can't be opened up to me where when you're giving that lesson, you empower the student and you say, look, if you get stuck, if you have challenges, you can't, the browser don't work or this, that, and that, or this, why you don't make it so look other places. Do me a favor, quote your resource. Just put in there where you got it from. There's no plagiarism. Put in there where you got it from. How you figured it out. It's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to normalize that we understand that that's what kids have to do, and that's what they will do. The other thing is now we can build up a database or build up some resources that when other students are running into those issues, they can do that. See, the thing is, you make a child feel like I'm stuck in between not understanding and not having enough resources. And I'm stuck with this thing that it just ain't coming across right. But you don't want me to look nowhere else. You gave me two things I could do if I run into an issue. And one is so time consuming, I'm going to fail or I'm going to be late on my stuff anyway. Whereas though the other student, depending on their school system or the way they move, they like, man, bump that. Check out YouTube, man. Look on Khan Academy. Call your boy up. Text the girl down the street. Walk down to the corner and ask the drunk down there drunk. He sounded like he was good at math. That's what it is. All this delay and structure, and they limit it to what you say they can read and what you say they can use as a tool. That's what we got to get away from. That's the point. Get away from that, man. Nah, you're not serving the teacher. You a student.
Is not grasping the math in front of you. Is it a sign maybe that they're not getting something in the classroom and they've just been shuttled off to the online class? I mean, how do you make sure that you're getting the most out of this as a parent?
Well, the way that this is what's great for parents, because many parents love this. We as a school, we're a magnet school, and so we attract children from both the urban and suburban areas. And many of our suburban parents love the online because what it does is it actually allows them to monitor what their children are learning. Unlike what happens with many parents who call the school and beg the teachers to tell them what their children's homework is and never seem to find out what exactly it is. With an online course, you can actually sit there with your child and watch what they do. Most of the people who are talking bad about online courses have never actually seen an online course. Many of them are pretty powerful.
But Steve, the American education system is so big and different no matter where you live. I'm sure some places it augments the child's experience. I'm sure in other places it's basically used because they've had huge budget cuts and they have to have smaller classrooms because of union contracts and the like, and they just don't have a body to teach that kid.
You're right, but here's the upside to that. Imagine, if you will, Stephen Hawking or one of these great minds. A child can learn from really brilliant people and not be bound by the limits of proximity. Right now, I can only hire teachers who are about a 20-mile radius of our school. But I can give my children access to courses from people teaching all over the world. We can have our children learn with people in China right now. So we can provide our children with a more robust academic experience.
I don't know, but you don't want to send your kid to school to put him in front of a computer to talk to somebody who's somewhere else. You send him to school to have a vibrant teacher in front of them who's teaching them the material, right?
But the teacher in front of them doesn't always have to be physically in front of them, a physical person. A person in front of them could also be online. This is a way in which people do more than just learn. They fall in love. So clearly online is more personal than we'd like to think it is.
We know the technology clearly changing the education. So, I mean, we'll continue to follow that, see how it plays. One last question I want to ask you quickly about. In New York, a report that there may be a way for some teachers to get out of the so-called rubber rooms. Explain to us what rubber rooms are, and explain to us what this story means and where you weigh in on it.
Very briefly, what a rubber room is it's a holding position in which teachers are put in who have been removed from the classroom for what is believed to be cause. And so during that time, they receive full benefits and they actually pay into their retirement. And when they return to the classroom, as they often do, they actually continue where they were. So if they were in the rubber room for 2 years and they were teaching for 3 years before that, they have 5 years still and they keep going. What's happening right now in New York is that they're allowing some teachers to buy their way back into the classroom, spending as much as $7,500 after having done something that was found to be egregious, so egregious that they were removed from the classroom.
Paying a penalty, and the hope is that they've learned their lesson and they're going to go back after paying this big penalty and they're going to be a good teacher again.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. When a person has done something to children in a school and they were removed from the classroom for that reason, then they need.
Well, we may be seeing more of this, right? The future is now. Harvard is hiring a new teacher for its introductory level coding course this fall, but it's not a teacher in the sense that you would think. It's an AI chatbot. The university plans to incorporate chatbots to help students find errors in their coding, answer questions, offer feedback, and help students learn more about the coding process, right? A computer helping you learn about computers, essentially. Joining me now, David Malin. He is a Gordon McKay Professor of Computer Science at Harvard University and helping to oversee this new course and the chatbot. Thank you for being with us. So how did this come about initially?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So we have a long tradition in this class, CS50 at Harvard, of using software to better support the TAs who help teach the class and also the students who take the class. So for us, this AI chatbot is really just an evolution of the sorts of tools that we've provided for students for some time. It's suffice it to say, when you have hundreds of students on campus, and in our case, via OpenCourseWare and platforms like edX, we have thousands of students online, we get quite a few frequently asked questions. So among the goal of the chatbot is to answer as many of those questions correctly for students as it can.
So the chatbot is just like we're seeing on screen, basically a texting back and forth. It's not like an actual AI helping to teach and advise students.
Not quite
like in the
that.
sense
It's
of
not
like
so
a
much.
face, a person, a name, right?
No, it doesn't have any physical form just yet. It is indeed very similar in spirit to ChatGPT, like you're seeing on the screen. But unlike ChatGPT and tools like it right now that tend to be too helpful by literally just telling you anything and everything that you might want to know about some subject, what we've been doing over the past few months is trying to teach the bot to be a little more like a teacher, being a good teacher, leading you to an answer, but not just handing it to a student.
Right, because the risk would be students would become too reliant on it, right? Turning to the chatbot to do their work.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some checks and balances that you all are putting in place to mitigate those potential risks?
Yeah, so much of what's happening right now in the space of ChatGPT and large language models in general is the ability to feed these types of programs prompts, instructions in English that essentially give the bot a personality or guide it to a certain behavior. So the sort of prompt that we're providing to our own bot is akin to teaching it. Assume that you are a teacher of an introductory computer science course, answer students' questions in simple terms, do not provide them with more than just a few lines of code. The goal being really to put downward pressure on just how helpful ChatGPT and other tools might otherwise be by default. So the goal is to make it much more akin to a good teacher and not just a tutor handing you the answers.
Right, just a way to support. So it hasn't been put in action with the students yet. It will soon. But what has been some of the feedback as you've developed it and watched people use it?
Sure. So we actually have been beta testing it, so to speak, with our summer school students at Harvard Summer School. So we have about 70 students here on campus and off campus using it thus far. And it's been pretty darn good so far. Our goal has been to have this bot answer as many as 80% of students' questions. And I dare say it's probably approaching 90 or so percent. It's proving very good when it comes to curricular, content questions about computer science, about programming. Some of the early bumps in the road that we ran into were that it was less good at answering administrative questions about deadlines or policies, because those things tend to change semester by semester. So insofar as these large language models have really been trained primarily on historical data, we've been improving it over the past few weeks to know a little something more about present day policies and dates as well.
What about the risk of getting hacked? What are some safeguards that you all put in place to prevent that?
Yeah, so this is integrated into our own software infrastructure that students already use for writing their code. The bot itself is proxied, so to speak, through one of our own servers so that we have an ability to keep an eye on things centrally in that way. And we also have an ability to analyze the quality of the responses that are coming through. And indeed, we pretty much have been doing this every day, such that if we see the bot being too helpful or even too inaccurate, we can then put in some safeguards and measures for the next day onward that will guide it toward giving better solutions. But it's very much access restricted to only being able to take input from a few different modes of technology.
And just a couple seconds here left, Professor, but this is being used for coding. Could it be used in other classes at Harvard as well?
Absolutely. And that's our hope actually for the fall semester and the spring, is to collaborate with some colleagues in the humanities, the arts, social sciences, physical sciences. It really is not something that's restricted to computer science. That just happens to be our own domain.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to
historical data. We've questions about computer science. About 70 students here on campus and off campus using it thus far. And it's been pretty darn good so far. Our goal has been to
So guys, I can tell you now, this guy right here, he is a professor, right? And I've taken one of the classes a year ago on edX, right? If you wanted to give somebody some access, and this is what I mean by other resources and tools that are available, and this has been out for maybe 10 or 12 years, but MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Harvard University, they basically got together and created a portal, and it's called edX, edX.org or whatever. You can go to it or whatever. You could go there and actually take, in the audit mode, real classes taught at Harvard, taught at MIT by different vendors and professors from IBM and some of the well-known established enterprise level companies, professors, instructors, what have you, okay? And there's also a small fee if you wanted to get it certified. And I mean individual courses. Now, she's talking to David Milan about, Milan or Malin, I forget how to pronounce his last name. She's talking to him about a bot that they're going to incorporate. Now, here's Harvard. Here's an MIT. Here's a Ivy League level school where the professors are inviting, embracing, rolling out AI tools and resources to assist them in assisting the students. Not pushing back saying, no, they just, they got a question, they need to submit an email and they need to make use of the blackboard or the whiteboard. See, that's old thinking. That's old thinking. They're telling you, and let me bring this screen up right here in front of it. This is first in, first out. This is just an acronym, but this is actually the course, one of the courses that he teaches, and this is a resource online.
First out. Now, structures like these actually offer specific operations that make sense, and in the context of queues, we generally describe these operations as enqueuing and dequeuing. So when our first 3 volunteers came up, they enqueued, and as I handed them each a bag of cookies, they dequeued and exited in that same.
This is actually CS 50 computer science course taught online in the lecture. Right there where they at, he's in the lecture room. It's full of goddamn students. You can take it online, like for free. And they're inviting and welcoming AI tools and some resources or assistant measures to assist the professors to assist the students. That's why I say this whole idea that all these school systems are just pushing back on, oh, they shouldn't be able to do that. Oh, they shouldn't be able to do that. You need to empower people, not restrict people. You need to allow people free will to move around, not draw the box around their thinking and then tell them later on, now go out and do something wonderful for the world and leave it better than when you found it when you was here. How I'm going to do that if you've been telling me what I can't do and you've been putting me in the box when it comes to learning or thinking, resources and all of this? Please. But anyway, back to this. Here we go. Oh, that's Gen Z. That's the Gen Z crowd. But here's what some of the old professors are doing to see if the people or the students can actually do the work.
Professors are going back to the basics, giving handwritten in-class exams and making students show proof of their work in order to combat AI. A survey shows 92% of undergraduate students are using AI today, compared to 66% last year. Our next guest is dealing with this firsthand. Stephen Cicerelli is an English professor at St. Peter's University in New Jersey, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, Professor.
Good morning.
Good morning. So you posted this post on X, this tweet, and you got almost 15 million views. Let me read it for our audience. You wrote, "I just failed a student for submitting an AI-written research paper, and she sent me an obviously AI-written email apology, asking if there's anything she can do to improve her grade. We are through the looking glass, folks." So this is when you realized it was a problem. It was verbatim AI. You ran it through some sort of a device where you can check, right? How do you do that?
Well, with that particular paper, I knew it was AI because it was it had real books that it was citing, but the page number, the quotes were not real. And the page numbers didn't.
So it's not always right. AI is not always right.
No. So it was mentioning a real book, but I actually looked at the real book, and those quotes were not in the book.
And you didn't recognize this writing. You've been teaching this student for a while,
Yes.
and you knew this student didn't write the paper.
Yes, I had seen, I do enough in-class writing with them where I get to know and I tell them on the first day that your writing is like a fingerprint. I get to know your writing really well by these in-class writings, so I can just usually sniff out when something's not them, and that usually sends me into detective mode after if I get a sense that things are off.
Yeah, a lot of professors are going back to the blue books. Remember those when we had to write essays? So it proves your work. You had to write out your essays or your math problems. In fact, at UC Berkeley, the blue book sales are up 80%. Blue book sales at Texas A&M up 30%, and at UF up 50%. How do professors tackle this? Because everyone apparently is using AI.
Yeah. So I mean, as a as a fiction writer and as a writing professor, I think in-class writings is one way to do it. But I mean, anybody who writes knows that the writing process is, you need to be alone for that sometimes. And so in-class writing works, but I've also been using Google Assignments where, and it kind of almost feels like I'm giving away my secrets and students are listening. But Google Assignments, and you can track the document history, and it'll show you minute by minute how the student put the paper together. You can see if they made edits. You can see if they misplaced a comma. You can see all of that stuff. And so when you see that at this minute there was no paper, and then at this minute there was an entire paper, something came in.
So you can check each student using this device.
Yeah. And I usually, I mean, just for the time's sake, I don't usually do it with every student. But like I said, if I sniff out something, I'll go and then check the document history, and I'll see, is anything fishy?
What are you hearing? What's the feedback from the 15 million that viewed this post
I've
and
never
from
heard
parents?
of Google. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Google Assignments could do something like that. That's ill. Let me see. How does Google Assignments detect, what is it, plagiarism or is it copy and paste? Which one do I say? Google Classroom Original Reports Plagiarism Check, how to use it. That's 5 years ago. I need something real recent. how to check for plagiarism on Google Docs. Or if that's if you're submitting it through Google Docs. Google Plagiarism Authenticity Checker. Wow. I didn't know it could do that. Well, you can. Then you have something called Turnitin. So these are just different ones. Don't use ChatGPT. You got plagiarism check with Google Doc. How to check plagiarism, run an originality report. ChatGPT and research, originality report, stop using for paraphrasing. Does Google Classroom have a plagiarism checker? Wow, okay, so they do. Using originality reports and Google assignments. All right, so they've been on it for a minute. AI cheating case resolved. School drops student violation. What happened here? Let's see what happened.
A student in Anne Arundel County has been cleared by her school system of claims she used artificial intelligence to cheat on an assignment.
It took a year, but as Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, while the family is relieved, they say problems haven't been fixed.
When you got the letter, you opened it, you read it.
Yep.
1 year.
She's a suit
That is how
ass.
long Tara Davis waited for this letter from Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Were you nervous?
Yeah, it was a little unnerving.
A letter that cleared her daughter's name after she was accused of using artificial intelligence to cheat on a class assignment.
The process was long, it was tedious, but I stuck with it and it worked.
Project Baltimore first interviewed Davis in May of 2024, 1 year ago.
She basically felt like they were calling her a liar.
Davis's daughter, who asked not to be on camera, attends Broadneck High School. Last school year, the now 11th grader was accused by the district of using AI to complete an English assignment. Her school does not have a policy concerning students using AI. Instead, she was found to have plagiarized, a violation of the district's academic integrity policy. That violation appeared on her permanent record, even though Davis's daughter says she did not cheat.
I want to keep going. I want to keep